Yes, now Prime Minister Liz Truss and her new Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, will deliver a mini-budget on Friday, setting out the government's economic policies as the cost of living crisis deepens.
Yes, the budget is expected to confirm tax cuts that were promised in the leadership contest and to clarify how the energy bill's freeze will be funded.
Yes, well, an opinion piece in The Times from the Director General of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Mark Littlewood, looks at how the new Chancellor needs to be more radical with his economic plans, including removing the cap of on bankers' bonuses. Well, let's speak to him now. Mark joins us. Good morning. Always great to see you. So we've got a new Chancellor. We obviously haven't had, or the government hasn't had much time, really, just to speak about their plans because we've had this period of mourning and reflection. What does Kwasi Kwarteng need to say? And more importantly, what does he need to do when he stands up and speaks to the public?
Well, it's really interesting. You've introduced the topic perfectly by the government, and indeed everybody's describing this as a mini-budget. I think this needs to be a maxi-budget. It needs to be hugely radical and decisive. You've rightly said that Liz Truss, during the Conservative leadership campaign, confirmed that she would abolish the rise in national insurance contributions and would also abolish the rise in corporation tax. I'm expecting the Chancellor of the Exchequer to almost do those in the first sentence or two of his speech on Friday when he stands up at the dispatch box. But I think we're going to need to see a lot more of that. The cost of living crisis is acute, really serious. It's not just afflicting people at the bottom end of the income spectrum. People on average to middling salaries are struggling to get by. So I'm expecting and hoping that we'll see a large number of tax cuts. But I think he needs to go even further than that. It won't just be about tax and spend. I'm really hoping there'll be a lot about regulation and red tape, which I suspect and hope that Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss will be wanting to remove in order to really boost enterprise. So for all it's a mini budget, it's an emergency fiscal event. I think we might see the most radical changes in tax and regulatory policy since the 1980s on Friday afternoon.
And that would really set this government apart from the previous one. I think after every budget, there was often a sense of disappointment for years. You know, we had the focus solely on COVID. So if we do see some radical measures to the extent that you're describing and hoping for, then this would really be a positive stamp for Liz Truss administration.
Yeah, I'm taking the Prime Minister at her word. She has said she wants to rip up the orthodoxy. There's no more steady as she goes managerialism. I think actually we have a very radical Prime Minister and a very radical administration. But she has basically talked the talk. The test on Friday is her government going to walk the walk? If it is just a few fiddles here and there and steady as she goes, then I will be hugely disappointed. But I suspect that there's no time to lose. You've rightly pointed out, of course, the government's lost an awful lot of impetus in its early days because of the tragic death of Her Majesty the Queen. But that's actually given them time behind the scenes to plan for this. This is almost the launch of the new government on Friday. And I think we should look into the whites of their eyes and to see whether they're really going to deliver. I'm anticipating it is going to be very, very surprising and very radical, not a mini budget at all, not a fiscal event, a very, very clear and decisive direction of a change in economic policy. Taxes down, regulation down, more power to individual men and women, and a bit less power to centralised government.